They tell you to never make eye contact with predators. I did more than that. I told the most dangerous man in Milan that I recognized his watch. The same watch my father wore before his empire burned. He knew instantly who I was. And I knew I'd just signed my name in fire. The champagne bubbles caught the amber light as I raised my glass alone at the bar, silk against my skin, feeling like borrowed confidence. My first real win? A deal I'd closed entirely on my own for Venturi Finance. The scrappy startup that took a chance on me when Goldman Sachs wouldn't return my calls. 3 years of night classes, 2 years of rejection letters, and here I was, celebrating in Il Osservatorio, the private club where Milan's untouchables came to pretend they were civilized. I was nursing my second glass, savoring the moment, when the entire room shifted. Not physically, energetically. Conversations didn't stop. They lowered, spines straightened. Women adjusted their posture. Men's laughter became more controlled, more calculated. I glanced toward the entrance and felt my breath catch. 6 men in tailored black moved through the space like a tactical unit disguised as sophistication. But they were merely the frame. The man at the center commanded gravity itself. Dark suit that probably cost more than my university education. Sharp features carved from Carrara marble and Roman authority. He moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who'd never waited for anything in his life. Because the world rearranged itself before he needed to ask. I should have looked away. Any sensible woman would have. Instead, I found myself studying him with the same analytical attention I gave balance sheets and risk assessments. And that's when I noticed it. The glint of precious metal and enamel on his wrist as he accepted a drink from the maitre d'. My grandfather's voice echoed in my memory. Becca, true wealth whispers, it never shouts. That watch was whispering. A 1953 Patek Philippe. Reference 2526. First generation with the cloisonné enamel dial. I'd seen exactly one other in my lifetime, in a photograph on my father's wrist the day before everything fell apart. Before I could stop myself, before my survival instincts could override my curiosity, I turned slightly on my bar stool as he passed. That's a beautiful Patek Philippe, I said, my voice steadier than my pulse. Refer 2526. You don't see many of the first-generation enamel dials in that condition. The effect was immediate and total. His entourage froze mid-step, like someone had pressed pause on reality. The bar, which had been humming with soft jazz and wealthy murmurs, went silent. Even the bartender's hand stopped mid-pour. He turned his head slowly, predator smooth, and those dark eyes, nearly black in the low light, fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He didn't speak immediately. He assessed, calculated, studied me like I was a ledger that didn't balance, a variable that shouldn't exist in his carefully controlled equation. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, accented, dangerous as black ice. You know watches. It wasn't a question. I know that one, I replied, meeting his gaze even though every instinct screamed to look away. My father had its twin, before someone decided he didn't deserve to keep it. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, surprise, calculation, threat, all compressed into a single microsecond, before his expression returned to that unreadable mask of control. One of his men moved slightly forward, protective, and I felt my heart slam against my ribs. But he raised one hand, barely a gesture, and the man stopped. Panicucci, he said softly, and my surname sounded like a verdict on his lips. You're Becca Panicucci. Ice flooded my veins. He knew, of course he knew. And you, I said, forcing my voice not to shake, are Averardo Padovano, the Don, the emperor of Milan's shadows, the man whose family name made bankers nervous and politicians compliant, the man whose father destroyed mine. His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, more like the ghost of one, dark and dangerous. "Careful, Bella," he murmured, stepping closer, close enough that I caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker underneath. Knowledge like that can get you hurt. My pulse thundered in my ears, but I lifted my chin. And ignorance can get you owned. For a long moment, he simply stared at me. Then something shifted in his expression. Fascination, calculation, hunger, wariness, all competing for dominance. "Enjoy your champagne, Miss Panicucci," he said finally, his voice silk over steel. "We'll speak again." It sounded like a promise. It felt like a threat. He moved past me toward the private rooms, his entourage flowing around him like water around stone. But just before he disappeared through the velvet curtain, he glanced back. Our eyes met once more. And in that single look, I understood, with chilling clarity. I had just walked into a game where the rules were written in blood. The stakes were higher than I could imagine, and walking away was no longer an option. I set down my champagne glass. My hand was trembling. "Real quick, where are you watching from? I love knowing where our community is spread across the world. Drop your city below, and if you're new, subscribe now. This story is about to take a turn you won't believe." Let's continue. Chapter 2. A Ghost. From the Past. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I fumbled with the keys to my apartment, a cramped studio in Porta Venezia that smelled perpetually of the Thai restaurant downstairs. The lock finally gave, and I stumbled inside, slamming the door behind me like I could shut out what had just happened. "What the hell did you just do, Becca?" I leaned against the door, eyes closed, pulse still hammering from the encounter. This was supposed to be a simple celebration, one drink, maybe two, toast to my first real win at Venturi Finance, and go home. Instead, I just identified myself to Averardo Padovano, the man whose family destroyed mine, and practically announced I knew exactly where his power came from. My tiny apartment stared back at me in judgment. One room. A bed that doubled as a couch. A kitchenette where only 2 burners worked. 400 square feet of hard-won independence that suddenly felt like a cage. I dropped my purse and moved to the window, unable to resist the pull. The street below should have been empty at this hour. Quiet. Safe. It wasn't. A black sedan idled near the corner, engine running, windows tinted so dark they looked like holes cut into reality. No one got in. No one got out. It just waited. My stomach dropped. "You're being paranoid. It's just a car." But I'd learned to trust my instincts. They'd kept me alive when my father's world collapsed. When creditors circled like vultures. When my mother's grief turned our home into a mausoleum of everything we'd lost. I stepped back from the window, reaching for my phone to... What? Call the police? And say what? That I'd antagonized a Mafia don and now a car was parked on a public street? The knock made me jump so violently, I nearly dropped my phone. Soft, deliberate. 3 measured taps. My heart climbed into my throat. I hadn't buzzed anyone up. The building's front door was locked after 10. I crept to the peephole, holding my breath. Nothing. No one. Just empty hallway. This is insane. You're losing it. But when I cracked the door open, chain still attached, I nearly slammed it shut again. White roses. 24 of them, arranged with the kind of precision that screamed expensive florist, sitting on my doorstep like a beautiful threat. No delivery man, no footsteps echoing down the stairs. Just flowers that appeared like magic. Or surveillance. My fingers trembled as I unhooked the chain and pulled the arrangement inside. My logical mind screaming that I shouldn't touch them, shouldn't accept anything from him. But I needed to see the card. It was tucked between the stems, small and cream-colored, with handwriting so precise it looked like calligraphy. For the woman who sees what others pretend not to. No signature. He didn't need one. The paper slipped from my fingers. He found me. In less than 3 hours, Averardo Padovano had found my address, sent flowers to my door, and delivered them without anyone seeing. The message was crystalline. I know where you live. I know where you sleep. There is nowhere I cannot reach you. Rage and fear warred in my chest. I grabbed the vase and marched into the hallway, shoving the entire arrangement down the trash chute. The satisfying crash of crystal against metal echoed up the shaft. Take that as my response. Back inside, I locked every lock, deadbolt, chain, the flimsy doorknob that probably wouldn't stop a determined child, let alone trained men. I pressed my back against the door, breathing hard, trying to calm my racing heart. This was a warning, a show of power. He was letting me know that my little apartment, my little life, my little victories, they existed only because he allowed them to. But Becca Panicucci didn't bow to threats. I'd rebuilt myself from the ashes of my father's destroyed empire, worked 3 jobs to put myself through university, clawed my way into a finance career that everyone said I'd never have. I'd survived worse than expensive flowers and cryptic messages. If Averardo thought he could intimidate me into silence, into invisibility, into being just another woman who knew when to look away, he was wrong. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't hide. And I definitely wouldn't pretend I hadn't seen that watch, hadn't recognized it, hadn't understood exactly what it meant. I moved back to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to peer down at the street. The black sedan was still there. And somehow, even though I couldn't see through those tinted windows, couldn't see his face or his eyes, I knew. He was watching. I lifted my chin, squared my shoulders, and stared right back at where I imagined he sat. You want a war? Let's see who breaks first. Then I yanked the curtain closed and walked away, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me afraid. But alone in the dark, with only the sounds of Milan traffic and my thundering pulse for company, I couldn't help but wonder, had I just made the bravest decision of my life, or signed my own death warrant? The first strange thing happened, Monday morning. Becca, my office, now. Marco Venturi, my boss, the startup founder who'd given me a chance when no one else would, looked almost nervous as he closed the door behind me. I just got off the phone with Castellano Private Equity, he said, running a hand through his greying hair. They want you, specifically you, to consult on their Mediterranean acquisition. My stomach dropped. What? They asked for you by name, offered triple our usual rate. He studied me carefully. Becca, firms like Castellano don't even know companies like ours exist. How do they know you exist? I couldn't answer, because I knew exactly how. By Wednesday, 3 more offers had materialized. Senior analysts were suddenly asking for my opinion in meetings. My emails were being answered within minutes by people who'd ignored me for months. Doors were opening, and I hadn't touched a single handle. Thursday afternoon, I stormed into Cafe Greco, the oldest cafe in Milan, neutral ground, where I'd tracked him through sheer fury and determination. He sat at a corner table, espresso untouched, reading Il Sole 24 Ore, like he had all the time in the world, tailored navy suit, that damned watch catching the afternoon light. He looked up as I approached, and something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe, or satisfaction. Miss Panicucci, what a pleasant surprise. Coincidence, I said, flatly, sliding into the chair across from him uninvited. Like everything else this week? His lips curved slightly. I don't believe in coincidence. Neither do I. I leaned forward, voice low and sharp. Stop interfering in my life. I don't need your help, your favors, or whatever game you think you're playing. Game. He set down his newspaper with deliberate care. I'm not playing anything. Castellano Private Equity doesn't just call random analysts. Doors don't open by themselves. No, he agreed softly. They don't. The admission hung between us like a blade. Why? I demanded. Why are you doing this? Averardo tilted his head slightly, studying me with that predator calm that made my skin prickle. You made yourself interesting. Actions have consequences. I complimented a watch. You identified a watch, he corrected. You connected it to history. You looked at me like you knew exactly what it cost. He paused. Not the price. The cost? My breath caught. He leaned back, utterly relaxed, utterly in control. You wanted to be seen, Becca. Congratulations. I see you. I didn't ask to be managed. I don't interfere, he said, voice dropping to something dangerous and velvet soft. I decide. The words hit like ice water. Decide what? Whether you're valuable, whether you're protected, whether doors open, his eyes held mine, or close. I stood abruptly, chair scraping against marble. I'm not an asset to be acquired. Everyone is. He took a sip of espresso, maddeningly calm. The only question is price. I'm not for sale. I haven't made an offer yet. The implication slithered under my skin. I turned to leave, needing air, needing distance, needing to escape the gravitational pull of his presence. Becca. I stopped, hating that I did. The flowers. You threw them away. I glanced back. I don't accept gifts from men who threaten me. I didn't threaten you. His expression was unreadable. I acknowledged you. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. He stood slowly, buttoning his jacket with casual precision. Threats are what happen when acknowledgement isn't enough. My pulse hammered. Stay out of my life. No. The simple refusal stole my breath. He moved closer, not touching, but close enough that I caught that scent again. Expensive cologne, and something darker, something that made my instincts scream danger. You walked into my world, wearing knowledge like armor, he murmured. You don't get to walk back out and pretend it didn't happen. Watch me. I left before he could respond, before my shaking hands betrayed me, before I did something stupid like admit that part of me, some reckless, self-destructive part, wanted to stay. Outside Milan's afternoon chaos swallowed me. Traffic, tourists, normal people living normal lives. But my breath came in shallow gasps, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just lost a battle I hadn't known I was fighting. Averardo Padovano wasn't chasing me. He was rearranging my entire world, and I had no idea how to stop him. Chapter 4. The Invisible Leash. The Castellano offer vanished overnight. I'm sorry, Miss Panicucci, the HR director said, voice clipped and uncomfortable. The position has been reconsidered. Reconsidered? Filled internally. We appreciate your interest. The line went dead before I could respond. Then my landlord called. Becca, about your lease renewal. There's been complications. Building ownership is changing hands. I can't guarantee what? I've paid on time for 2 years. It's not about payment. It's about, look, I'll do what I can. He hung up quickly, like the conversation itself was dangerous. By Friday, the pattern was undeniable. Opportunities evaporated. Responses grew cold. Even Marco looked nervous when I entered the office. Like proximity to me carried risk. Averardo wasn't opening doors anymore. He was closing them, testing me, showing me exactly how much control he wielded with a single phone call, a whispered word, a shift in attention. You want to defy me? Watch your world shrink. I lasted until Monday before fury overrode self-preservation. The Padovano group occupied 15 floors of gleaming glass and steel in Porta Nuova, Milan's monument to new money trying to look old. I stormed through the lobby in my work clothes, probably looking half wild, and marched straight toward the private elevators. "Miss, you can't." Security moved to intercept, hands raised, professional but firm. "I'm here to see Averardo Padovano. Do you have an appointment?" "No, but he'll see me." "Miss, without clearance? Tell him Becca Panicucci is here. Tell him I'm done playing whatever game this is." The guard reached for his radio, expression shifting from annoyance to uncertainty. Before he could speak, the private elevator doors opened. Averardo stepped out. He wore charcoal grey today, no tie, top button undone. Somehow more dangerous in his casual authority than full formal armor. His eyes found mine immediately, and something flickered there. Amusement, fascination, satisfaction. "Miss Panicucci," his voice carried across the marble lobby. "What a surprise." "Liar." His lips curved. "Matteo, it's fine. She's expected." I wasn't. But he made it sound inevitable. He gestured toward the elevator. "Shall we?" Every instinct screamed to refuse, to leave, to maintain the distance I was desperately trying to preserve. But I'd come here for confrontation, and backing down now would be surrender. I walked into the elevator. The doors closed, sealing us in glass and tension. "You're angry," he observed as we ascended. "You're destroying my life, adjusting it, without my permission. You involved yourself in mine without asking." He countered smoothly. Reciprocity. The elevator opened directly into his office. No reception, no waiting area, just floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Milan, minimalist furniture, and the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. He moved to a bar cart, poured 2 glasses of something clear and expensive. "Sit. Talk. No knives." I stayed standing. "Why are you doing this?" He brought me the drink anyway, setting it on the glass table between us. "Because you're either an asset or a liability, Becca. I'm deciding which." "By ruining me?" "By seeing what you're made of." He took a seat, utterly relaxed. "Anyone can be brave with safety nets. You? You stormed into my building ready to burn it down." His eyes gleamed. "That's interesting. I'm not your experiment." "Sit." The command was soft, absolute, and I hated that I obeyed, sinking into the chair across from him, accepting the drink I didn't want, entering the negotiation I'd sworn I wouldn't have. The moment I sat, I felt it, the shift, the symbolic surrender. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture eased. Like a chess player watching an opponent make the exact move predicted. "I want to understand you," he said quietly, "not control you. You're doing both." "Perhaps." He swirled his drink. "Tell me why you recognize the watch." "You know why. Your family destroyed mine. My father destroyed yours," he corrected. "I inherited consequence, not crime. You're wearing the evidence." He glanced at his wrist, expression unreadable. "Would it matter if I said I didn't know? That I wore it for years, without understanding its history? Would it be true?" "Partially." His gaze returned to mine. "I knew it came from a rival. I didn't know it came from your father until you stood in that club and named yourself." The admission hung between us. "So what now?" I asked. "You've proven you can destroy what's left of my career. Congratulations." "Now," he said, leaning forward slightly, "you decide if you want to keep fighting me, or if you want to understand why fighting is pointless." Sounds like control. Sounds like clarity. His voice dropped. "I don't need to break you, Becca. The world will do that efficiently on its own. I'm offering something different." "What?" "Protection, access, power." He paused. "Understanding. In exchange for what?" "Proximity, honesty, trust." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Trust? You've spent a week manipulating my entire existence. I've spent a week showing you what's possible." His eyes held mine. "With me or against me? Your choice determines the scope." My hands tightened around the glass. "This isn't a choice. It's coercion. It's reality." He stood, moving to the windows. "You walked into my world knowing dangerous things. You don't get to walk out unchanged. That's not how power works." "Then let me go." He turned, backlit by Milan's skyline. "No." "Why?" For the first time his composure cracked. Just barely, just enough. "Because you looked at me like I was just a man. Do you know how rare that is? How dangerous?" "Dangerous to who?" "Both of us." The honesty in his voice stole my breath. I should have left. Should have. Thrown the drink in his face, stormed out, found a way to disappear. Instead, I heard myself ask, "What do you want from me?" Averardo smiled, slow, dark, inevitable. "Everything." The dress arrived Tuesday morning, midnight blue silk, designer label I couldn't pronounce, with a note in that precise handwriting. "Saturday, 8 o'clock, don't refuse." I should have burned it. Instead, I found myself standing in front of my mirror Saturday night, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The dress fit like it had been made for my body specifically, which, knowing Averardo, it probably had been. The car arrived exactly at 8. Black, sleek, with Matteo holding the door open like this was normal. Like I hadn't been trapped into attending some elite charity gala as... What? A statement? A warning? A claim? "He's waiting inside," Matteo said, expression unreadable. The venue was the Palazzo Reale, because of course it was, where Milan's most powerful gathered to pretend their money was clean, their consciences clear, their hands unstained. I stepped through gilded doors into a world of crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, and designer gowns that cost more than my yearly rent. Conversations hummed beneath string quartets, diamonds glittered like captured stars, and every single person turned to look at me, not casual glances, calculated assessment. Whispers rippling through the crowd like a stone thrown into still water. "That's her, Panicucci's daughter. What is she doing here? With him?" My pulse hammered, but I kept my spine straight, chin up, refusing to show the fear clawing at my chest. Then I saw him. Averardo stood near the far windows in a tuxedo that looked like it cost more than my education, speaking with men who probably controlled half of Italy's GDP. But his eyes found mine, across the entire ballroom. Immediate, magnetic, possessive. He excused himself and moved through the crowd. People parted without him asking, the sea recognizing its apex predator. "You came?" he said quietly when he reached me. Did I have a choice? No. His honesty was almost refreshing. He offered his arm. "But you look like you made one anyway." I hesitated, then took it, feeling the warmth of him through expensive fabric, the coiled strength underneath. He led me deeper into the lion's den. "Why am I here?" I whispered. "Because hiding you would suggest shame." His voice was low, meant only for me. "I don't hide what's mine. I'm not. Tonight, you are." He stopped, turning to face me fully. "These people need to understand that you're under my protection, that touching you means answering to me. You're using me to send a message. I'm using me to keep you alive." His expression was unreadable. "There's a difference." Before I could respond, a woman approached, dripping in emeralds and barely concealed contempt. "Averardo, darling." Her smile was poisonous. "I didn't realize you were bringing charity cases to charity events." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. I opened my mouth to respond, but Averardo's hand tightened slightly on my arm. Not restraining, warning. He didn't raise his voice, didn't move, just shifted his gaze to the woman with the kind of cold focus that could stop hearts. The entire ballroom went silent. "Apologize," he said softly. "Now." The woman's face went white. "I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said." His voice carried despite its quietness. "And now you'll take it back. Or you'll leave. Your choice determines whether your husband's permits get renewed this quarter." She stammered an apology so fast it blurred together, then fled like her dress was on fire. I stared at Averardo. "That was necessary." He guided me forward again, voice returning to conversational warmth, like he hadn't just threatened someone's livelihood with surgical precision. "They need to learn." "Learn what?" "That you're not prey." I should have been horrified, should have recognized the brutality dressed in tuxedos and polite threats. Instead, some dark part of me felt protected, seen, valued. God, what's wrong with me? "Dance with me," he said, not asking, but not quite commanding either. "I don't—" "Yes, you do." He led me to the floor as a waltz began, his hands settling at my waist, with possession disguised as propriety. This close, I could see the fine lines at his eyes, smell that cologne that was becoming dangerously familiar. We moved together, and somehow my body knew the rhythm, knew how to follow his lead even though I'd never waltzed in my life. "You're tense," he observed. "I'm surrounded by people who either fear you or want to destroy you, possibly both. And you? What do you want?" "To run, to stay, to understand why I can't tell the difference." "Answers," I said instead. His lips curved slightly. He lifted his hand, brushing a strand of hair from my cheek with unexpected gentleness. "You walk into fire like it owes you answers. Maybe it does. And if you get burned, then at least I'll know what heat feels like." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, hunger, warning, all compressed into a single look. The music swelled. We turned. And I saw her. A woman, older, elegant, watching from the shadows, with an expression I couldn't read. When our eyes met, she gave the slightest shake of her head. "Run." The message was clear even without words. Run while you still can. Then she disappeared into the crowd like a ghost. My breath caught. Averardo noticed immediately. "What?" "Nothing." I forced myself to focus on him, on the dance, on maintaining composure. Just a lot of eyes. "They're trying to understand what you are to me." His hand tightened slightly at my waist. "I'm still deciding myself." "And when you decide?" He pulled me closer. "Improper, possessive, undeniable. Then everyone will know exactly what it costs to threaten you." The promise should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like falling. And I still wasn't sure if he was catching me or pulling me under. The gala stretched past midnight, champagne flowing like water, conversations blurring into white noise. Averardo had been pulled into discussions with men whose handshakes probably sealed more fate than contracts ever could. I'd retreated to the balcony for air, for space, for a moment to process the fact that I'd just waltzed with a man who could ruin lives with a glance. And part of me had enjoyed it. The terrace doors were glass, slightly ajar. Voices drifted through. Low, urgent, Italian flowing fast enough that I almost didn't catch it. Almost. The Bergamo acquisition closes Friday. The shell companies are already positioned. And Padovano doesn't suspect. He trusts Castellano, always has. My breath stopped. I knew that name. Castellano Private Equity, the same firm that had offered me a position, then yanked it away. I shouldn't eavesdrop, shouldn't involve myself further in whatever web I was already tangled in. But my father had taught me to read numbers like poetry, to see patterns where others saw chaos. And something in their tone, the smugness, the certainty, made my analytical mind start running calculations. I edged closer to the glass, pretending to admire the Milan skyline. The paperwork's clean, Once the transfer processes, those assets redirect to our accounts offshore. Padovano will be down 40 million before he realizes the play. 40 million. Shell companies. Trusted ally. My mind assembled the pieces instantly. Fraudulent acquisition structure, probably using layered LLCs to mask ownership, timing the transfer during normal Friday market chaos, when scrutiny was lowest, classic embezzlement dressed as legitimate business. And they were doing it to Averardo. I should walk away, let his empire bleed. He'd destroyed my father. Why shouldn't I watch karma collect its debt? But my feet carried me back inside, searching the crowd until I found him. He stood with 3 men near the bar, Matteo at his shoulder, discussing something that looked tense. When his eyes found mine approaching, something flickered. Surprise, concern, interest. "Excuse me," I interrupted, voice steadier than my pulse. "I need a moment." The men bristled at the intrusion. Matteo's hand moved slightly toward his jacket. But Averardo studied me with that predator calm, reading something in my expression. "Gentlemen, give us a minute." They dispersed, though not far. I was acutely aware of eyes tracking us, ears straining to hear. "What's wrong?" he asked quietly. "The Bergamo acquisition, Friday. Do you have shell companies structured through Castellano?" His expression didn't change, but his entire body went still. "How do you know about Bergamo?" "Do you?" I pressed. "Yes, Castellano's handling the transfer architecture. Why?" "Because someone's using that architecture to steal from you. 40 million routed offshore, buried in the Friday processing chaos. You'll sign paperwork, authorizing the transfer, but the destination accounts aren't yours. They're masked through layers that look legitimate until it's too late." The silence was absolute. Averardo stared at me like I'd just spoken in tongues. "Where did you hear this?" "The balcony. 2 men. I didn't see their faces, but they referenced Castellano by name. They think you trust him too much to verify the account structures." "And you understood all of this from a conversation you accidentally overheard?" His voice was dangerous and soft. "I understand numbers, structure. This is what I do. What I'm good at." I met his gaze. "Check the paperwork. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, if you're right, someone very close to me just tried to rob me blind." His jaw tightened. "Matteo." His second appeared instantly. "Don, pull the Bergamo files. Every account structure, every routing number, every signature authorization. I want the entire chain visible by morning." "Of course." Matteo's eyes cut to me briefly, assessing, calculating. "All of it?" "Everything. And Matteo?" Averardo's voice dropped. Quietly, "No one knows we're checking." Matteo nodded and disappeared. Averardo turned back to me, expression unreadable. "If you just saved me $40 million, I owe you." "You don't owe me anything, I hesitated. "I couldn't let it happen, even to you." "Especially to me, you mean?" His lips curved without humor. "Your father's enemy." "Maybe." I held his gaze. "Or maybe I just hate theft more than I hate legacy." Something shifted in his eyes. Respect, hunger, fear. "You're dangerous." "So are you." "Yes, but I chose this world." He stepped closer, voice dropping to intimacy despite the crowd. "You stumbled into it wearing silk and intelligence, and somehow you're more dangerous than men with guns." My breath caught. "I just read financial structures." "You just dismantled a betrayal in under 2 minutes using overheard conversation and pattern recognition." His hand lifted, almost touching my face before stopping. "Do you know how rare that is? How valuable?" "I'm not." "You are." His intensity was overwhelming. "And now every person in this room who saw you pull me aside for an urgent conversation knows it too. I didn't mean to." "I know." And then, impossibly, he laughed. Not cruel, not mocking. Genuine amusement, warm and surprised and almost boyish. It transformed his face completely, erasing the Don and revealing the man underneath. The sound was terrifying in its beauty. "What?" I asked, breathless. "You." He shook his head. Smile lingering. "You walked into my life by accident, challenged me in public, threw away my flowers, stormed into my office, and now you just exposed a betrayal while wearing a dress I bought you." His eyes gleamed. "You're either my greatest asset or my most dangerous weakness, and I cannot decide which." "Maybe both," I whispered. "Definitely both." His expression sobered, but warmth remained. "That's what terrifies me. I should have walked away, should have recognized this moment as the point of no return. Instead, I felt something dangerous bloom in my chest. Not love, not yet, but recognition. Being seen, valued, not for beauty or compliance, but for the sharp edges I'd always been told to soften. "If I'm right about Bergamo," I said quietly, "what happens? To Castellano?" His voice went cold. "Nothing pleasant." "And to me?" Averardo leaned closer, lips near my ear. "You become the woman who saved the Don $40 million, which means you become untouchable, protected, mine." The possessive word should have repulsed me. It didn't. God help me, it didn't. "I'm not yours," I managed. "Not yet." He pulled back, eyes holding mine. "But you will be, because you just proved you can see betrayal before it strikes. And in my world, Becca, that makes you more valuable than gold. Or a bigger target. Both." His smile was dark promise. "Which is why I'll burn this city before I let anyone touch you." The vow hung between us, like a blade and a shelter, and I realized with absolute clarity I'd just stopped being prey. I'd become something far more dangerous. An asset he couldn't afford to lose. A weapon he couldn't control. A woman he was starting to need. And the terrifying part, I was starting to need him too. Need a part 2? Let me know in the comments.